All right, we are rolling. Everyone is here. This is a little bit of an experiment, everyone. So bear with us. Let me pull the banner down. Anyone who is unfamiliar, usually we run two different shows. One is Sell Like a CPCU, and the other is How to CPCU. This is a joint effort on the part of everyone who's normally involved. Plus, we have a very special guest with us. Broker Brett is with us. How's it going, Brett?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
I can't complain. I could, but my wife would tell you I'm full of crap. So as usual, joined by Precious and Heather. How are you two doing?
Fantastic. I feel like worlds are colliding today.
How you been, Precious?
Man, it's kind of rough down here in the South. I've actually got some family members recently diagnosed with COVID, so it's been a really trying time.
Oof.
But just again, reminder not to let your guard down, man. This is still very much with us, and we just got to be well and be safe. But other than that, not to be too much of a buzzkill, I'm on doing this tonight, so this is always a good time.
Awesome. All right, cool. So normally I throw up wherever you are watching, whether it's on the New Jersey CPCU YouTube page or Periscope or Twitter via Periscope, or if you're watching through the Agent and Broker Interest Group channels, please throw us a like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, retweet, and share it to get it out there. Help us with the algorithm so that we show higher up on the search results. And that is my shtick. So we have Brett, who is coming to us from, as you can tell from the banner in the background, the flag from the great state of California. How is everything out in California there, Brett?
Good, weird, Precious saying, a little bit of mixed bag for everybody right now, so it's a good time to be a relatively conservative insurance person. I wouldn't pretend to always operating in the perfect, safe manner, like I may or may not have mentioned racing back from Palm Springs today. But, where we can, we need to be cautious,
Yes, of course. Yes, most definitely. So anyone who's not familiar with who you are, can you give like a little 1-2 minute Reader's Digest of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'll do my best. When I had my first insurance agency job, 5 years ago, happy accident made brokerbrett.com as kind of landers, home insurance, auto insurance, just a forms website really. Because surprise, surprise, it's hard to get people to fill out paperwork and insurance, Fast forward a couple years later, tried to launch an agency out of that. That independence got me involved with a couple startups, but still love getting my hands on the insurance paper. Try to become a better agent every day. Jealous of the knowledge that the CPCU folks have. I feel like a baby with a bazooka sometimes. You guys have learned how to build the bazooka, control the bazooka, read through the owner's manual of the bazooka. I still got to work on that.
Yeah. Look, we do have, I don't know if Heather and Precious, you'd say we're full of ourselves or anything like that. We definitely kind of,
it's earned.
Yeah. But truthfully, there's, for lack of a better euphemism, there's many different ways to skin a cat. So, experiential knowledge, I think you're right up there with the greats that are out there and also very vocal, kind of, in the public eye, so to speak. So, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Yeah, I think you're right. So where are you working at right now?
So I'm actually in the Fineo office, and so my main startup project. So there's actually the Canadian flag too. We have a Canadian flag and the U.S. flag. It's about 5 minutes from my house. So I'm very spoiled and lucky with that. Costa Mesa, anybody who's familiar, kind of right by John Wayne Airport. But yeah, very blessed. Enjoy the Southwest. I feel a little bit out of the loop. It feels like insurance is almost like a Northeast thing. So I feel like we're on a little bit of an Insurtech island down here, but we won't complain.
And what is it that Fineo really kind of focuses on? What's the core competency there?
Yeah, so a platform for life and living benefits sales. Prospect to policy, rating, comparisons, policy delivery. Started in Canada, rolling out in the U.S. It's been awesome, to be a part of that whole adventure. And it was interesting because when I first got involved, I noticed it was almost building like a cover wallet, but for life insurance. And we think we're behind sometimes. Life insurance is a couple years behind P&C even. So we can feel a little better about ourselves. They're working on APIs. We're already hitting our stride with those. But yeah, it's been a blessing to be a part of that project. It's allowed me to stay independent, make friends like Precious along the way as well, and cause some trouble. And try to take some knowledge from some, really sharp folks out there.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Precious, have you had experience selling life insurance in your past, and what's that experience been like?
Yeah, life and health is actually where I cut my teeth, with the whole insurance career endeavor. I went into it because I wanted to do really meaningful sales that impacted, generations and, just quality of life. Not to say that PNC doesn't have the ability to, but man, when I jumped into that, won't say how many years ago and date myself any further, but it was really about, I was focused on senior market, because that was the buzz that, the senior market's growing, people are retiring, the baby boomers, like everyone position yourself. And, I used to run field appointments. So like old school, like I spent a day beating up the phones. I'd spend the next 2 day, pulling up in driveways, sitting across kitchen tables, and absolutely loved it. Being a Louisiana girl, kind of the rain on my parade, if you will, was Hurricane Katrina. So that's how long ago I was doing this, and that's really when I pivoted because I saw that there was just so much need. There were so many questions. Just everyday people didn't understand how they could take this tool and really leverage it to better protect themselves. And so when I kind of tapped into that aspect of it, a little bit of what you said, Brett, I think one of the things that most CPCUs have in common is the whole adage that the more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know. And so it really kind of sets the stage for this lifelong learning. And so even though, the letters are great, whatever comes with it is awesome. But it really just kind of opens your mind and gives you just that humility that there's so much out there that we don't know and that we're constantly learning. So never feel like, somehow, you're outgunned here, to your analogy.
Yeah.
Because we're all still learning this together.
Yeah. So, Heather, what was your first reaction when Brett was talking about the bazooka?
Oh, yeah, no, I just echo Precious's comments there because as CPCUs, we are on a constant path and a constant journey to building that knowledge base. And as a dyed-in-the-wool PNC carrier girl, I haven't ventured into that life health space that much. But as a instructor and a professor for a local university, I have had to learn a lot about it because I had like 3 chapters in my course study that was dedicated to life and health insurance. And you want to talk about like, awe-inspiring, being able to educate the next generation about at their age and help them to understand how important it is that they take advantage of the opportunities right now while they are young in their life to get into, buy a small life insurance policy now while you get the great rates and everything. It was really eye-opening. And a lot of my students came back to me and said, gosh, I never knew. That was something my mom and dad always took care of. So there's a whole world out there to learn about when it comes to insurance. And as CPCUs, we are constantly on that journey.
Oh yeah. And I can remember the personal financial planning or the personal insurance portion of the CPCU. I forget if it was part of like one of the electives that I took or whatever. And I found myself, even after having worked as a financial advisor for Prudential, taking that course and going back through, and part of my notes section was actually me doing a financial plan for myself. And I was like, oh crap, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. Like, so it was something where I got the value out of it, not just, taking the test, but also, my agent got a call immediately after, and I was like, all right, I need these 3 things, So Brett, have you always been in the life and health space? Did you ever spend any time on the dark side of the PNC, or has that always been your thing?
So the PNC has actually been a majority of the experience. Grew up around a moving company, thought my dad was going to buy it, so moved back from copier sales and construction, all sorts of really attractive early job opportunities in the 2010s. So sold office moves for 6 years and saw insurance as a similar kind of sale, but I didn't have to manage crews. And I thought if I could insure the building or the space, I'd know where the project was going to be. And it was an excuse to kind of put my toe in the water or something else. Yep. So worked at an agency for a year, worked at what I thought was Insurtech, but like a leads company for 6 months. And then the last stint got recruited to an HR supplemental benefits spinoff. So I had to get my life health license for that role. Kind of a clunky project, recommended stripping it down, upselling it, lost that job in under 3 months and was kind of grumpy and just started bartending and haven't had a day job since. Started bartending and worked on my own agency. But if it wasn't for that last goofy job stint, I wouldn't have had my life health license. And then when I connected with Fineo through Insurance Nerds, through trying to give back to the insurance community, I was like, hey, I don't really know much about the lifestyle of the business. Like, don't worry about it. We're good there. But you have the flexibility to get us licensed. So it opened that door, which has allowed me to keep, contributing, causing trouble, staying independent, all that good stuff. It's been a fun, interesting journey.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because the reason why it was like flipped for me.
Yeah.
I had my life and health through Prudential, and the reason why I got property and casualty license was just so I could sell auto policies when I was at the kitchen table in order to get some renewable revenue.
Yep.
Right. And so that was always that was the disheartening thing about selling life insurance, is like you get that nice hit when you actually sell the policy. And then it kind of depending on what your comp structure looks like, you probably don't have any renewables that come afterward, so that was, and then I got called by a headhunter and they're like, hey, you're P&C licensed, why you didn't come work for this commercial insurance broker? And the hiring manager was like, well, you can't even spell commercial property and casualty insurance, so we're gonna have to do some work. And actually my CPCU was kind of like that gauntlet.
That's cool.
That got me to that point. But so no, that's awesome. Did you always want to get into the Insurtech space, or was it just the opportunity that made itself available to you that then kind of got you into it?
Yeah, and I'll take a quick aside. A game plan I've heard. So right now I'm trying to cut my teeth, sell a little more life insurance. And I've heard kind of sell life up front, sell personal lines once that's roll, and then go commercial. For whoever's listening out there, if they're thinking about doing their own thing. For Insurtech, just nobody else would give me a shot. So I lose that job and I decided to go try to sell. It was almost like a minor miracle that CoverWallet would let me sell commercial. And then, Hippo, Clear Cover, First Connect out of Texas. Were other companies that gave me an opportunity to sell. And then later connect with Smart Choice, which has been a great carrier access partner. But really at first it's because there's only people who allowed me to the table. You reach out, and even once we were established and had an agency, I won't name which major carrier, but built out a whole business plan, did this and that. And it was a 15-minute, no meeting, so it's really the Insurtech's openness worked great. Mm-hmm. But I don't really put them on a pedestal. I just look at it like different hunting spears. I play golf. I finally started playing golf again. Different clubs in the bag,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, some specialty clubs,
Yeah.
With me, I usually play with the same three because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So, it is what it is. But
I just try to survive and keep up. I actually, it's a love-hate relationship. It had been 7 years. Yeah.
I'm really good at buying drinks when the drink cart comes around. Let me tell you that. So you and Precious kind of have some parallels, or at least some overlap in terms of your background. Precious, how did you get linked up with Brett through Insurance Nerds?
Yeah, I mean that's really it. The Insurance Nerds community. When Brett and I first hopped on a call, it was right on the cusp of me going independent. And so Tony Kanya, shout out, to Tony again. Always plugging Tony. It's like, hey, what doors can I open? What introductions can I make? And so, sent a mutual invite to Brett and I, and we hopped on a call. So one of the things that like you said, common ground. We were talking about even the hospitality background. So that was my pre-insurance life. I came from restaurant management for a number of years, and I was like, if you can survive that, I'm convinced you could do anything. After you've been cussed at and yelled at over things beyond your control, you're like, claims, bring it. You're like, I paid for pizzas that are almost eaten. Let's do this. So, but yeah, I think that was the big resounding encouragement that there's certain skills that just transcend the specific discipline, right? Because people hear the word sales, and I don't know how many times people say, oh, I'm not good at sales. I'm like, everyone is selling, right? You're selling your credibility, you're selling your reputation, you're selling whatever. It's just negotiating, right? And it's just whether or not there's cash exchange or deals that are signed or files that are closed, so for people to just have this innate fear when they hear the word sell, I just think is ridiculous. And, I shared with them my take on it is, again, just really looking out for people's best interests.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the approach of trying to demystify like this big, intimidating, blob and show people how to take small actionable steps, so really kind of the education piece. I had a high school teacher who was like, man, you missed your calling, like you totally should have went into education. I said, who says that I didn't?
Right. Yeah,
we just
true.
do it differently.
Well,
Now Heather, on the other hand, has really delved deep into this education realm. So you mentioned at the college. So what curriculum are you teaching? Look, I know. Sorry, Matt. I just hijacked this.
Yeah. No,
Run with the ball.
I teach an introduction to insurance and risk management course. It's
wow.
It's a freshman sophomore level course at Illinois Wesleyan University here in Bloomington, and they don't have an insurance and risk management style program because the college down the street, Illinois State, is insurance and risk management central. We do encourage a lot of collegiate graduates out of insurance and risk management programs here in the Midwest, obviously. So, but no, I kind of fell into that. And just like you're saying, Precious, you talked about restaurant management, and I'm just laughing in the back of my head. I ran a preschool before I worked in insurance. I had 600 kids in my school. So you want to talk about fighting fires and running craziness.
Claims management, little tiny claims.
Insurance claims, I can do this. This is simple. The conflict resolution is at a totally different level when it comes to insurance and running a preschool. But yeah, no, I kind of fell into actually via a CPCU connection, I fell into that professorship or adjunct professorship with the school and started teaching during COVID this past spring. But so I will be back in the classroom as long as things hold out right now. I will be back in the classroom this fall with a class of about 30 kids again. So I'm super excited. I call them kids. They are adults. It's really difficult, but my kids are in their early 20s as well. So they're still kids to me. But their curiosity, but also like their lack of knowledge about insurance and the gap there is very large. So I'm like, if I can help them in any way at all to understand that insurance is not that mysterious and there's always more to learn about it, that's the exciting part of it for me.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's awesome. And the best part of little kids is they don't hold back, man. They let you know exactly how they're feeling. You get direct feedback. You don't have to wait for the Yelp review. Like it happens quick. So let me ask you, Brett. It sounds like in your current capacity, you're working with carrier partners directly, or are you also offering basically a customer facing or broker facing value proposition?
So on the Fineo side of the house, we're recruiting agents and rolling up to a large IMO. And I say this as a guy who's sold copiers, one-off moves, home, auto, life insurance. I've been able to make one carrier connection in the U.S. so far that's going well. It's pretty cool. I'm used to, like I said, excited to get a personal lines bundle. So it was fun to kind of crack that door. And then on the, personal side, probably 60% has been personal lines so far, 30% commercial, 10% life. And I've touched, it's interesting. I've sold group benefits to my buddy Blake. I've actually sold kind of every type of insurance at this point. And, it's move quick, find fit. I hate the analogy like sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. I'm like, that's lazy. Like find somebody who likes ketchup popsicles. I think sales is kind of easy when you're finding fit, to Precious's like focus, I think this is a get rich in your niche, have an expertise. I don't want to be broad. I think I'll blow up if I keep trying to do a little bit of everything. But it's just sort of how I've touched the industry so far, and it's been fun,
That's an awesome line. That almost sounded like a Preciousism.
We've been hanging out. We've been side channeling, you know. It's a mutual encouragement.
Yeah. You know, I'll catch up you later. No, I kid.
It was funny. Tony Kanyas was excited to connect me and Precious. He's like, you know, Southern like hospitality and kindness meets SoCal laid backness. You know, do that. This good combo. Yeah.
So, what's your favorite to sell? Like, is there a specific line of coverage that you like to work with?
I like commercial. I've always liked selling the businesses. I feel a little bit weird about getting a person's money. And then lately, life insurance has almost become like this paranoia in the back of my mind. If somebody has a kid or buys a house, I almost feel like I have to check off a box and say, hey, do you guys have anything in place? But, you know, in an ideal world, I need to work on something that will have consistency. I'll build up a commercial book and then maybe do something a little more like sexy. 2 years ago, I was trying to sell more or less to startups, and that would happen, but they're all over the place. A lot of small policies, a lot of weird, so there wasn't a lot of rinse and repeat. So the next things I want to get into, I want to find some sort of systemization and really have like a core, you know, maybe keep touching the other things, but I think it'll be important to find something I can really hone in on, you know, and that's been my downfall so far. It's just catching everybody's sort of leftovers and random stuff and working on it. I got to figure out how I can proactively go hunt.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think we can both learn a lesson, or all three of us can learn a lesson from Precious in terms of the way that she's building her agency, because having that defined niche it's like invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable. I'm hopefully I'm not speaking for you, Precious, but I mean, it's probably nice. I'll ask you, you know, it's probably nice knowing when you wake up in the morning, you know, who you're going after, right? Like it's not just shooting with birdshot, right?
Well, you know, it's really interesting because, you know, kind of Vegas style, when you bet it all on black, you know, there's a chance, you know, like right now, transportation is it's no picnic. I mean, this market, you know, everyone talks about, you know, the hardening of the market. It's like rock hard right now. And so there's some, you know, fear in, you know, just how you diversify. And so like even within the niche, there are different nuances and things. And so I'm always trying to make sure that, you know, we're, you know, spread from a geographic, you know, exposure, carrier exposure, you know, so all my eggs aren't in one basket. You know, I compare it to, I've got a good friend of mine down in Houston who's been working, you know, his whole career is oil and gas. And oil and gas, that industry, you know, as long as it's trading more than X number of dollars per barrel, man, it's the land of milk and honey. Everybody's going to happy hour, you know, adding guacamole. It's like
we're not supposed to add guacamole. I'm from Southern California. That's all we do.
Dude, that's rich. Like if you can add the guacamole when you like get your, you know, your burrito bowl, then that's when, you know, that's baller status, right?
That's $2, man. Yeah.
But the second it drops below, then all of a sudden people are, you know, just bailing, and there's, you know, gnashing the teeth and crying in the streets. I mean, but again, it's that heavy dependence in it. So specialization, I put that hand in hand with education. You know, when you become really knowledgeable and you can explain, that's really the only competitive advantage I have, is that people know that I know what I know, and they trust me because I'm able to articulate that. Because, you know, if you sell by the dollar, you lose by the, you know, it's, you know, just there's so many different ways to approach it. So you've got to go towards wherever your natural audience calls. Right. You know, so it's really hard. You know, I jokingly tell anyone, especially, you know, folks who spend much time around me, like, I probably wouldn't do that great, like at the sales counter of like Jenny Craig. Probably not. Just taking a guess. I might rock it. Who knows? Right.
Yeah.
But
the problem is you would sell to the people that look good on, but the people that didn't, you'd be like, girl, don't do that. You would cut down your own market, you know.
You know, that might not, you know, be my shtick, you know. But yeah, when you find something and you just learn the ins and outs of it, and, you know, then you just, you know, you come from a place of passion. And lastly, you know, every sale, obviously, it's a win, it's a bind, it's a payout. But I look at it more like rescuing that person from the wolves that may lurk behind door number 2. Like if I get them taken care of, then at least I know I went into it making sure I was taking care of their best interests, so they're not still out there, you know, because there's some unscrupulous
There's
stuff.
some predators.
Oh yeah.
It also really helps when you have a partner agency or another professional out there where, you know, you have that kind of, you know, gentleman's agreement, or for lack of a better phrase, gentleman's agreement, you know, like a person-to-person agreement, where, you know, if you can't supply that one thing, at least you bring it up and then you can like refer it to them. But yeah, no, totally. Like, and that's why I always ask people like whether they're specialized one side or the other, because the mantra when I was at the bigger shop was, we don't want anyone doing the health if we're doing the P&C. We want it all, right? If we can get it. And it was mostly because the last thing you want is another fox in the hen house, you know, trying to pick that stuff up. So no, that's completely understandable. So let's transition to Insurtech-y stuff. So I'll let you kick it off, Heather. In terms of like the Insurtech space, what have you seen? I know that you're not maybe like directly working with any of the kind of like Insurtech solutions that are getting plugged in at State Farm, but what are you kind of seeing like 30,000 foot view in terms of the Insurtech space and what that looks like in terms of, you know, say retail insurance distribution?
Man, it is such a wild, crazy place. It's like the wild, wild west out there right now, because you have Insurtechs that I've seen that are really like they're plugging in and recognizing, hey, if we can help with distribution and getting things to market faster for carriers, that's the channel that we want to go through, because we know that they can't build what we can build to get them there faster. Because faster to market is always like on the mind of carriers today.
Yeah.
And with legacy systems lagging behind and their capabilities to be able to do that, Insurtechs can plug in and really just build it to where you've got a product to market in 3 months instead of 3 years, you know? So watching that world move, as well as just, you know, seeing how they are also helping on the agency side and helping agents to be able to be, I guess, you know, more digitally focused. I mean, agency's a relationship business, but we're living in a world where people want to be able to pick up their phone and do everything right here on the phone. And Insurtechs enable the agency and broker space to step into a world where it's just like it's a marketable channel that you can grab the public in, and then you keep them. Why? Because you educate them and you spend the time and you build those relationships with them. So, and I think I take from what Precious said earlier, you know, whether you work for a carrier, whether that you are a broker, whether you are an agent, insurance is 100% about managing relationships. You know, I mean, I live in a world where I herd cats all day long with cross-functional, cross-collaborative projects across a massive organization with people from 1,000 departments and trying to get them all in the same place. I'm selling all day long, by the way, to people that they can do this, you know. Yeah. And building the confidence in them, and, you know, making sure that they make the right connections so that they can make the right decisions as they move through those projects. So we all live in the same world. It just looks a little different, you know, and I think that as far as, you know, Insurtech is concerned, sky's the limit. I mean, carriers need to wake up and realize that the Insurtech community is not scary. It is not there to take you over. They have so much opportunity to open up a world of business that they have never been into before.
Yeah. So. Well, and unless you're one of those Insurtechs that has the ear of a lot of the major newspapers and likes to use some guerrilla marketing to say that stuff, but you know.
Those guys, whoever you're talking about, I think are more of like a PR machine than like an insurance company at times, and I think they actually operate more like an insurance company than they want to admit. I don't even think of Insurtech anymore. I think of technology, sales, protection, digitization of just about anything. Like, you know, they compare the internet to the printing press. Like, things are going to change. I always think you want the best tools in a war, you know, not to be overly dramatic and not to underappreciate people who actually gone to war. Sure. Yeah, so to me, it's just gathering the sharpest tools you can. And I look at it as like a digital layer on top of what's already there. I don't look at it as like really inventing or changing anything. You know, to get really esoteric, if you're up like on a hill looking down, there's like the cops that take care of the bad guys and the dump trucks and trucks that bring the food. Insurance is just, you know, the digital is just tying all that together, you know, kind of inevitability. And I think the hard part is how do these big monolithic systems sort of bring it in? But I always think like the side pot, you know, that you can kind of grow while this is still rolling, to me makes the most sense. You know, you don't need to blow this up, but you need to get another bet going, I think.
Where
Yeah.
does Fineo kind of like fit into that, ecosystem or tech stack? Like, is it an app? Is it a cloud-based solution? I mean, how is it accessed?
Really cool. Thank you for the question and allowing me to plug. I just wanted to come on and nerd out with you guys.
No, that's all right.
Providing a digital fabric, prospect to policy. So we can email or do a fact finder, from my chair. You can fill it out on your time, which kind of goes to that millennial experience, not needing to sit across from a table for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then brings in the data, can rate it, can do a quote comparison. More mature up in Canada can take the data from the platform to the carriers to start the application. US, we're working on that right now. But it's just a place to facilitate business. I have 40 bookmarks for my agency. If we can get rid of 35 of those, I think we're doing our job. So just a hub, to get things done. It's been really cool. And I think, Ali, the CEO, has had a really cool vision. It's been fun to see it click. Yeah.
But awesome. Even how life insurance is broked now, like how it's sold. I remember back in the day when I first started selling life insurance, you kind of encountered the typical, hurdles, right? You have people like, oh, that's morbid, and whatever. They have all these feels around it. In this era right now, still moving through a pandemic with job loss, it's become a hot topic. It's become something that people, like Matt was saying, when you're going through the test and you kind of did a gut check and said, hey, where am I in this process? And so what I've heard from a lot of my colleagues that are still very much in it, it's in a world where you can go from a physical where all's well to like ICU in a matter of weeks. It just really, again, it is bringing it up. And the digital piece of it is huge, because part of the issue used to be when I was marketing for life insurance submissions is that if this was friends, family, church, whatever, and now they've got to like divulge to you like all the, the shameful stuff of their medical history, there was always kind of that weird, like, is she going to look at me different if I tell her the meds that I'm on, if I tell her the stuff that I've wrestled with? If I get declined, will she see the file? Is she going to know about, all the skeletons, right? Now, man, you send them a link. You just kind of get, like, I call it the pizza tracker model, right? Where did they fill it out? Where is it at in the process, just to make sure, if you have to bump them for something, hey, did you schedule, that paramedic, whatever the case is. But it takes the come into the office from 8 to 5, carve out time in the middle of your day, and like you guys were saying, is very much and a lot of it is a generational thing, where we have to get on board with meeting people where they are. I see that a lot of times Insurtech follows fintech. Like, fintech will go first. And so a lot of the technology that we use actually piggybacks off of mortgage. I think more, like you said, if you kind of have to rank who's moved first, right? I think, finances moved, then insurance goes, and then as insurance goes through it, personal lines always goes before commercial. Unfortunately, I'm on the low end of the totem pole, by the way, when it comes to that. Like trucking stuff.
It sounds like you're seeing down the field, though.
Dude, it's like we're still using like carbon copy paper. Like your fingers are still black. Like, how is this a thing? Right, triplicate copy. The green copy goes here.
I'm envisioning Precious churning the mimeograph machine, churning out
Absolutely. And so it's fascinating to watch, all the different things. Like, I follow like blockchain and looking and seeing how, that's impacting claims handling, it's impacting underwriting. You see some of the stuff and you're like, is this faddish? Is this gonna, kind of burn out before it makes it to, my place? Because I think that's always the hesitation. What do we lose in giving up our safety blanket of how we've always done things?
Oh yeah, and to your point, is it faddish? I think doesn't make it simpler. Don't put in tech to put in tech. It doesn't make life easier. It doesn't make communication better. Because there have been some people who have some crazy blockchain ideas, but I'm like, you realize the lift you're putting on this whole situation, like, doesn't make it simpler. And if it does, probably can work. If it doesn't, you're trying to shove a solution into a problem that's not there.
Or you're trying to kill a mosquito with an elephant gun, right?
Yeah, or back to the bazooka,
Here go the firearms again. I'm starting to get a little nervous.
Well, we don't get political. And so anyway, So, but yeah, no, that's really interesting. Is, yeah, there's like there's an infinite continuum of the solutions that can come out of the insurtech space, or this kind of like tech revolution that's going on. And the question is whether or not you're chasing the next kind of bright shiny object, or whether or not it actually has a use case that's going to have a measurable positive effect on whatever your measurables are, right? Like whether it's to pull from something we've talked about with Heather on how to CPCU, like if you're looking at claims results, right? Like, are you getting to like a faster resolution? Is there like less churn, or is there less waste in the system, right? Like, are you tightening up the actual expected versus paid out, losses and things like that? So all of that kind of factors into like, all right, if you're going to pick a solution, pick one that's actually going to have some impact, right? Or at least you expect to have some impact. Is there a lot of like waste out there? I mean, it definitely seems like, I don't want to say it's like this because the leverage and stuff like that in the marketplace is a different story, but it definitely still does seem like that there's just like a bajillion like, insurtech-y type startups, and probably 99% of them won't be around in 50 years. I mean, do you still kind of get that feel, or do you think that there's a broader marketplace that's going to be able to support more of them?
I don't think it's any more special or different than any other industry. I think they say like 1 in 100 startups gets VC backed, and like 1 in 10 VC backed startups survives. Yeah, I think you got to kind of go case by case. I also think there's a new hot thing I've noticed. Like it was blockchain, then it was APIs, then it's robotic process automation. There's always this wave of like this next kind of novelty. And I've always sort of gravitated towards like kind of the unsexy, like I don't want it to be like, I don't know. It's just interesting to me. Like the crowd usually gets you in trouble. It's been kind of mind blowing to me. I say this super humbly, but for my broker Brett one, there'll be people who find me or reach out, and these will be some like genius people from like Ivy League schools or like worked at Google or something, and like, hey, we have this idea. I'm like, I think you're overcomplicating this, and you don't understand how the thing actually works. But yeah, the interest from the outside is phenomenal. And then Tony Kanyas referenced it from Abel Travis. He said you have to have the insurance and the tech. And I've noticed that in projects that have been insurance heavy or tech heavy, there's really a strange balance that you need in this industry. And it is, an old hand industry. I came into it thinking I just run circles around people. People seem sleepy, and I didn't realize how entrenched relationships are. It's very interesting. I do think the one thing we got to watch is sort of the embed nature and who owns the pipes and who owns the relationships on sort of automated place policies. That'll be interesting going forward.
Yeah. There's actually a really interesting dynamic where, Precious knows firsthand. So like someone like a Harbor AI, right? When they're working on, say, a piece of tech, you would think that there was not very much, I guess, leverage in terms of the startup being able to influence how the process of underwriting and quote rate and bind is done at the carrier. But it's interesting. I mean, like, could you talk about that, Precious? I don't want to blow up your spot or anything like that, but I mean, like, just in general, doesn't it seem like that carrier's a little bit more open to actually kind of like maybe change their underwriting processes to at least make it less friction in terms of the tech that they're looking at being involved in for the distribution?
So I think that to, not too specific to that particular operation, but kind of taking a step back.
I can help you out and jump in too, Precious. If you don't mind.
So some, obviously, my career path, how I kind of got to, the doors that I passed on the way. So I left, major carrier to go work for my first Insurtech back in 2015, right? And that's when even just the naming convention Insurtech, no one knew what the heck I was even talking about, right? And so Insurtech is really funny, and I think Brett will probably agree that it's one of these banners that you either align with or you even try to draw some space between, because unfortunately there have been some other ventures that have gone forth and soured the the name a little bit to where we went from unknown to people were hyper skeptical, and it was this kind of this weird vibe. It's like, there's no true definition. It's not like it's FDA approved. Who gets to call himself an Insurtech? What do you actually do to be able to lay claim to that title, right? There's no list of ingredients, and you have to hit some bar like organic, right? So the issue is that, because what we're talking about really at the end of the day is just innovation. Okay. And we've seen this happen time again in the industry, where you'll have the Insurtech, right? You'll have the innovator who goes forth, and then once they've kind of proven to be somewhat successful, then a big carrier will pick them up. We saw that happen with Esurance, right? When Allstate picked them up. We saw that happen with CoverWallet when Aon picked them up, So a lot of the Insurtech that is out there, they're almost out there with the hopes of getting picked up. That's really kind of what the game is, right? And so when you say things like, will they be in it for the long term? Well, if they're really successful at what they do, a lot of times the end game is getting acquired and getting bought out. And so Brett mentioned earlier, kind of the doors are a little bit more open on Insurtech, because let's be honest, right? Sometimes it's really hard to recruit like seasoned insurance talent, especially those of us who've come from employers that have been around for decades, centuries, and to woo them away, and people thought I was, out of my mind when I left a major carrier to work for an Insurtech, but to your point, it was that trade-off. I wanted to kind of get in on the ground floor. I wanted to grow with it. I wanted to, kind of sharpen, have another tool in my tool belt and find out how like the other, side, lived. It's almost like a Lion King moment, right? Like I sat there and they're like, everything the sun touches belongs to the carrier. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to go into the shadow. Like,
that dark place over there is Insurtech. Yeah, 2018.
Kind of like Lion King mashup with like Little Mermaid. I'm like, I want to be on land. Like, what's happening out there? Because I was watching emerging trends and things that, when you talk about, kind of just the marketplace in general, when you talk about just businesses and just the lifespan and the ability to thrive in business, a lot of that misses us in insurance, because like the youngest carrier on the block has been around for like 100 years.
Yeah.
So we don't get a lot of that, because, between, fiscal, and financial responsibility, they don't even make it that far if they can't prove it. But I say all that, in my personal opinion, my humble opinion, is that the jury's still out on a lot of this stuff, because like what you said earlier, Matt, the end result, what impact has this made? Have we gotten better results? Are we finding that losses are less frequent or severe? Are we finding that, our underwriting still strong data points and stuff?
There we go.
We don't.
Oh, Precious is remixing her own audio feed.
Yeah, there we go.
So hopefully she catches back up here. But so, to her point, I think that's hugely valid. Like whatever the KPI is, right? Yes, we got you now. Can you hear us? Now we lost her completely. But yeah, whatever the KPI is, I think is ultimately is going to be what wins out. And so whatever, the carrier's looking to measure, as far as, its success, which by the way, I mean, like, I would love to hear your opinion on this, broker Brett. So, when you're in this world and the carrier has its set expectations, and then the, Insurtech innovative people have another set of expectations, is it possible to kind of veer the insurer in the direction of being like, okay, this is what you're to expect? Or is it pretty much very much like, look, we're making the investment. This is what we want the KPI to look like. This is what you need to build for us, or, adapt what you have?
I think they want a full picture. And sometimes they can get their own data. Sometimes they'll use an Insurtech to get the data. Sometimes, and I even think of like Accords and supplementals as just data, really. They just have to get to where they feel comfortable enough to deploy the risk, to deploy the capital. And, whether it's a form submission, whether it's a portal, whether it's APIs and like an agreed upon set of questions, everyone's just trying to paint the picture to a level that they're comfortable. And in some carriers, you need to basically bundle up your items in a way that they're comfortable with and leave it on their doorstep in a way that they traditionally see it. And others are going to let it go to a sales team, and they'll process through it internally, and they'll finish it out for themselves. And you really have to run the gambit, and you're kind of on the end party's terms,
Yeah.
for right now.
It definitely sounds like you can't necessarily be ideological, right? Like you can't be set in stone and be like, no, this is the way the tech is set up. This is the way it's supposed to work. We're not going to deviate from that. Right? You
got to get some critical mass to get there, or you can play it regionally, or you can have a niche. It's just such a big landscape. You're not dictating it today.
Yeah. Now, looks like, do we have Precious back? We don't have picture, but do we have audio? Oh, no, she back jumped out again. So yeah, I think that's interesting dynamic. Like you have to be flexible if you're on the, Insurtech-y side of it, right? Like, and really kind of cater to the customer.
Or to the paper or to the underwriting, But I think a lot of it is historically you were responsible for all the data. You had to paint the whole picture. But now I feel like there's varying levels of data that the underwriters, whoever is on the back end, feels comfortable grabbing for themselves and layering on top of what you're giving them. There's some Insurtechs, you just give them the name and the address, and they're going to populate the whole app basically, and you tune it up, and their underwriting's fine with that. So I mean, but it's still balls in whoever has the money. It always comes back to who has the money.
No, I can't blame him. I mean, if I'm writing a check, I want what I want, right? Like, how does that play out on the claim side, Heather? Is that something where, is it? I don't want you to necessarily have to talk specifically from State Farm's point of reference, but just on the claim side in general, is it typically the carrier saying like, this is what we want, and then they go and try and find a tech company to actually fill that void? Or is it something where tech companies are essentially throwing spaghetti against the wall and then, you see what sticks?
I think it really depends on the carrier and their attitude and their acceptance of innovation and innovative, practices, especially carriers struggle with the whole concept. And this is widespread across multiple carriers. They struggle with the whole concept of, we want it fast, we want it cheap, but we also want it to be effective and have some quality with it. But we are not always willing to pay to have that quality piece. So we're going to go with fast and cheap, and then move it on down the line, and then figure out why we lost the quality in the back end. So and I think that Insurtechs can lend a good balance for all of that to carriers today, to help them in that efficiency piece and that fast piece, because that's the part that they struggle the most with most of the time. And then you get into the claims world when it comes to claims. I mean, claims is so rich with data today. Like there is so much intel, and I'm digging back to my really old days. Like I lived in a world where I would pull paper files to figure out what had happened in the history of a home whenever I was handling claims. And then it became, well, we have this electronic system that you can kind of look some of that stuff up in, but I would still go grab that paper file because not all the information was in the electronic system, and I needed that data to make good data-driven decisions whenever I was dealing with claims. So today, information is readily available at a lot of claims departments' fingertips. They can easily access, records of history. I think the challenge is a lot of times there's some silos in organizations to where getting data from like the very front end of when the policy was written and like what happened with the home inspection and those types of things. And then I was also, I was even chatting with a friend the other day about, what in the world happened last year with like underwriting of, personal lines, commercial lines properties. Was it all, did we move into this world where everything was virtual? We didn't have all the technology to be able to do that last year. Like not every company out there was ready at their fingertips. I can deploy a drone at this property, or I can do, I can grab this satellite image for this. How did we evolve, and what kind of underwriting has happened in the past year because of the fact that we haven't had we haven't had a lot of physical home inspections in the past year in a lot of property locations. Telematics and data give us a lot of information, and like the databases and the histories that you can pull now, because data, we're in this world where data is readily available at your fingertips a lot of times.
Yeah.
But what impacts does that have to the claims world in the next 5 years when we have written some bad insurance over here?
Yeah.
And what can Insurtech do to plug in and help that piece today too? So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So it sounds like on the claim side, there's less of a data collection issue and more of a like number crunching issue, or at least not just number crunching, but just kind of like formulating it and organizing it in a way that can result in a quick but an accurate decision. That's pretty interesting. So let me ask you, Brett, how did COVID affect you in terms of work environment? Were you still able to be productive? Like how did that affect your day to day?
So at the time, I was helping with the benefits office doing PNC to kind of cut my teeth. And luckily, we had always been pretty digitally enabled, so really nothing changed too heavily. Just threw everything in a bag and went home. But I mean, I'm 36. I do like having paperwork on file sometimes. I'd be lying if I didn't like spreading everything out and looking at it, especially a big renewal or something. With Fineo, I was the only one remote before, so it's kind of interesting. I'd be on a laptop in a room. But once everybody went remote, I felt way more integrated with the team. So selfishly, that was kind of beneficial. I connected with a lot of founders. We would do like a meeting sometimes. I had a Insurtech Young Guns. Everyone was under 30. I just got like 10, 12, younger producers on a Zoom. And it was really cool to hear like the data scraping, the automation they were doing, the dialers they were using. There was some stuff that was like second nature to them that blew my mind. I grew up cold calling, collecting business cards, going through book of lists, the kind of learn from the baby boomer cowboys. There's some really cool stuff the next generation's doing intuitively. From the business development brokerage side, I would say it was really hard to make ground. You can kind of hold steady, but last year was really difficult in terms of initiating new relationships, make things happen. Everyone was kind of like holding their breath to try to see how things shook out. So that was the downfall. Felt better networked, but had a hard time making gains on the traditional, PNC front.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you started off, you felt like the odd man out, being the only one remote, and then it was like everyone, now have to learn to live like you. Yeah,
it was interesting. It was cool though, and I'm good with both. Like I've always been an outside sales guy. I like being on a team. I've always been fairly autonomous. So being like at first the only U.S. guy, and now we have 3 people. It's fun. It's fun claiming a beachhead. I listened to Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, and there was always somebody in the other country that kind of knew the lay of the land and kind of led them around a little bit. It's pretty cool, getting to be that guy for a startup.
Yeah, no, and that's also pretty cool too, because talking about the international aspect of insurance and the insurance marketplace, I mean, you're kind of personifying that in terms of like, your work across the Canadian border, et cetera, right?
I'm the Michael Scott of Insurtech. My international business.
So, I think that's also a really interesting selling point for just the industry in general. So like whether you're a techie person or you actually want to get involved in the insurance aspect of things, it is kind of a passport, right, for you to experience things that are, especially if you want to branch out outside of your state or even outside of, the United States to gain some experience and things like that. What was some of the cultural, I don't want to say like, problems, but I mean, like, what was some of the cultural relational things that you came up with, in terms of working with Canadians?
It's been really easy. And I'll give a shout out to like Insurtech Ed in the UK or Rahul in India. It's been crazy. I mean, there's been even founders I've connected with like in India through all this. It blows my mind. There's not too much difference. We're slightly spoiled here on the life insurance side. There's a lot more responsibility on the agent or the general agency in Canada. We have a lot more data on the back end. For life insurance, the GAs make it really easy on us relatively. PNC, I think, is pretty darn similar. I have a friend, I'll give a shout out to Thomas with BrokerLift out Toronto. They're awesome. He is so annoyed that every state has its own jurisdiction in the United States. It's much easier to get licensed nationally, and the rules tend to be more even across the country, Canada. So that's probably the biggest difference. But besides what we call the bathroom, great people. Industry works similarly. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I love that. Have you had a chance, Heather, to work with any counterparts? I know State Farm is a big company, but I don't know how much you get the opportunity to work with anyone overseas so much.
Not a lot, but years ago, we kind of sold off our Canada business to a company. It's I'm not going to throw out names right now, but because this was quite early in my insurance career, actually. But yeah, State Farm is solely United States insurance company, not really in the world, but the world's changing. That's for sure. We are definitely becoming more global. And I do echo your comments there, although I am a big proponent of, state control of insurance. The licensing aspect of it is just a disaster for most people that work in the industry. And, trying to pick up all your PNC licenses that you might need for all the various states to be able to sell it. And I know Precious, if she's back with us now, can tell more stories about that. But it's crazy. It really is. So, nationalizing that might be something that would make things simpler. But I don't know how you can do that while we have state control of insurance companies. So,
what's your experience been, Precious? I know you write in a number of states now.
Yeah, I'm nervous now. I think I was spilling too much tea earlier that the Big Brother shut me down. So that's why.
Oh no.
So I'm just here. My voice is here. My image cannot be on the screen. I had to change my name to come back.
Doesn't make a bad joke. It's like the founder of Alibaba. Everything's cool. Everything's good.
I'm still here.
Yeah, but I think, for the most part, in my, again, early in career, I didn't realize that the Lloyds, that they're literally in London, right? Like the syndicates are actually out there. And so I would email, and, with technology, I've got my emails going to my cell phone. I get little like alerts and things like that. And I'm like, how rude. Why is this person sending me like an update like at 3 a.m? I was like, oh, wait.
That's funny.
It's not 3 a.m. for them, so like there's certain things that, because we just call it Lloyd's of London, we just take it for granted. I was like, oh wait, there's actually they're still, they're out there.
It's not London, Ohio.
It's not Lloyd's of Texas,
That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that, like you said, for as much as we have so much in common, but to your point, Heather, we start getting into, like I said, state rights and the autonomy and their ability to, the best practices through commissioners, and at the end of the day, that's probably the hardest part. And Brett, I'm sure you guys have encountered that too, when you are licensed from coast to coast and you have to remind yourself, wait, this one's every odd year, this one's every even year, this one's every leap year, this one's on my birthday, this one's the first of the year. And it's like, man, the fees, what they call it, there's all of these different, but even beyond being compliant, there's a lot to be said about understanding the pain points when you write business in a certain part of the country. When I started writing more in Florida, I had to, again, catch myself up on the whole concept of the aquifers, had to understand how things got to be how they are out there. When it comes to construction types, right? So I used to start that whenever I would teach a PNC boot camp on the personal line side. I said, down here in the great state of Texas, we like the aesthetics of brick, but the heat would kill us. So we have a lot of brick veneer down here. Very few buildings are bona fide brick. When you start talking about like wind mitigation on roofs, Florida is all about hurricanes. So if you have a true 100% hip, they get credits for that. Whereas here, we kind of can rock the hip mullet. It might be a hip in the front and a gable in the back, but it's okay in the street. It looks that way, right? When I was traveling out to the Midwest, and you have the true, roofs where, again, snow accumulation is the issue. So you have the salt box, all of these different things.
And it just gives you an appreciation for, sometimes it's dangerous when you have people in our industry that are a jack of all trades but an ace of none, because if they don't really have an appreciation for what the pain points are, in a particular jurisdiction, in the transportation world, even more so when you start getting into the different states, like the state of Kentucky, if you're even just cutting through with a load, like you have to register with their DOT. Oregon is that way. California has some really insane like emissions rules, and so there's literally certain lanes I stay out of because I'm just not well versed. And in the insurance world, especially as as an advisor, we have to kind of take the medical approach, do no harm. Right. If I can't do it justice, I'm not going to botch it for my learning curve's sake. Yep. I'm going to gracefully bow out and let the ones who specialize in that, kind of take it from here. So there's so much going on, but information is readily available. I don't believe in the whole, I have to live, work, play, worship in a place in order to do business here. But I do have to respect what makes that unique.
I want to give a shout out to a friend's company that's real cool, Hazard Hub, Bob Frady. They have a great report card, and I always use that whenever I'm riding out of state and I'm unfamiliar with weather issues, whatever else. It kind of gives you everything bones out from a house that you need to worry about.
Like awesome. Proximity to coast is what we worry about here in the Gulf. Proximity to brush is what y'all worry about, in California, because it burns every year, I guess. Now I don't know how it works anymore.
There's quirks too, like even Orange County, like we have pinhole leaks like crazy because we have hard water. So you want to make sure you watch your carriers that are better with leaks than others. Little things like that. It's helpful. Yeah,
it's interesting. Let's see. Hip mullet is definitely going on a quote square somewhere.
Oh my gosh. I lost it, Precious, because I have been on many a hip mullet roof here.
In Texas, you can get away with rocking the hip mullet. It's going to be a t-shirt. If anyone who watches this program...
We love the square footage. It could be brick veneer for street facing, and then the other three sides are vinyl. It's just all about appearances. And so, again, I think when I was out in Colorado, a colleague of mine showed me, I wasn't familiar with the swamp cooler, right? Because that whole concept of just pulling the humidity out of the air and not necessarily dropping temperature. I was like, why are all of their AC units on the roof? And like, oh, honey, you don't even know what that is. And I didn't, So much fun. Be a tourist in your own backyard.
Right.
Well, I don't think I can do anything better than that tagline. So I want to be respectful of your time, Brett. I'll give you the last word. Anywhere people can find you, and what are you working on? What's coming down the pike?
Yeah, I appreciate the plug for Fineo, FINAEO.com. And then, brokerbrett.com, just as it's spelled, is a good place to find me. 2 cents I gave on Bradley Flowers' podcast was just that I think Insurtech can help you out when you're a step away from your core competency. Like if you're really heavy in commercial, a HIPPO or a clear cover is going to be a nice way to take care of a one-off personal lines request. And vice versa, if you're really not as versed in commercial, Italage, or Coterie is going to kind of simplify the process a little. If I'm swamped and weeded, I may go for a HIPAA homeowners, but if I got time, it's a referral from a friend, probably a traditional traveler's bundle. I don't think one's necessarily better than the other, and they're both going to meet needs in different ways. So just, I don't think one's good, one's bad. Place time, make sure it's good paper, and got that nice rebuild value on there, and you should be all right,
Yeah. No, Brett taking us to school. I love it.
No, I think learn from you guys. I gotta step it up.
Heather, any last comments, words on Insurtech or what you got coming down the pike here?
No, I'm super happy that you joined us today. I thought it was crazy as we were all sitting on the screen there. I was like, we got the East Coast, we got the West Coast, we got the South, we got the Midwest.
I love it.
And awesome. Insurance is everywhere, and it's pervasive, and it will never, ever, ever, ever go away. It's just going to look different in the
future.
Keep
the wheels turning,
Yeah.
No pun intended, Precious.
We keep the world going round. With mullets and all.
Precious, any final words?
Man, look, if you guys haven't already picked up on it by now, like, Brett is the truth. I really appreciate you, brother, and all the energy that you bring to this. You know, you're reaching a crowd that sometimes won't tune into something like this. You know, you're getting the word out, and, you know, again, just, you know, what you do is so invaluable, and just never undervalue that. There's so much there. I am so stoked to be on here with all of you guys. You know, our first and our inaugural, you know, kind of co-produce. Well, we have one producer, so Matt, thank you also for all that you do for all of us to keep us in line. We're just the talent. You're really the kind of the mastermind behind this whole thing. So you know, again, this is amazing. You know, couldn't have, you know, spent this time with a better crew.
Awesome. Reminder, everyone, like, comment, subscribe, share, notification bell, retweet, send it out there. Help us out if you made it this far into the program. Hopefully you got something out of it. Brett, thank you very much. I appreciate it for popping on. Oh, we got Terrence Harvey checking in right at the end. That's awesome. Terrence, what's up, brother? Terrence is awesome, dude. Everyone go follow Terrence Harvey on Twitter. He throws out sunshine every single day. He's like, if I'm ever feeling down, I just go check Terrence's feed on Twitter. It's usually good follow. So with that, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And we'll be back next week. We're gonna have to figure this whole thing out because this worked really well. So we'll see if this becomes a regular occurrence. But we will definitely be back next week. So with that, everyone have a very good evening.
Thanks guys.
All.
Hey guys.